Welcome back to the news, everyone. I have got some fascinating stories for you today. I mean, City Skylines 2 launch, it's actually happened, and it's a little bit more interesting than you would have thought because we've taken a little dig into Paradox Interactive's financials, and they may just explain why a few games have maybe came out somewhat earlier than they should. Also, the fate of Harebrained Schemes, which thankfully is not as grim as it otherwise could have been. We've got Electronic Arts seemingly following their kind of newer way of making games in a way that actually could be good, and some other stories. So, with that said, let's jump in, and who knows, maybe we're at 300,000 subscribers right now. It'd be pretty cool if we were. Be sure, of course, to subscribe to the channel, and if you weren't aware, we're also a game development studio, so if you go and follow the link down below, you can see our survival narrative adventure role-playing game, The Pale Beyond, which, is on Steam. Alright, with that said, let's get started then with the City Skylines 2 launch. The question is, did Paradox's gamble pay off here? Paradox have had a very bizarre month because Lamplighters League came out. We then heard of we already knew there was rough layoffs at that studio, but that was a rough situation. Then Star Trek Infinite, which essentially is Star Trek Stellaris, inspired by Star Trek Stellaris mods. That didn't have a particularly great launch either, and then City Skylines, had a rough launch too. It's all a bit weird, and it does make you think, why did Paradox just not wait on these games? Well, let's get into the numbers then. So, City Skylines 2 is sitting at 51% positive on Steam right now. I should certainly say, though, that, it was actually quite a lot lower than that. Whenever I first looked, I think I saw it was like 28%. I was truly shocked just how negative it was. But in this case, though, being mixed, 51% with 12,732 total reviews, this is actually a situation where they can claw it back over time. As an example, City Skylines 1 has got 181,000 reviews, 93% being positive. So you can really see how in 2 or 3 years, that number will probably end up being very positive, unless, of course, they, obviously manage to mess it up in some way. In terms of numbers, though, well, to count as a player of this game on Steam, you will, in fact, need to have purchased the game. And what we found is that its all-time concurrents are actually higher than the lifetime of City Skylines. City Skylines' top ever is 60,386, whereas 104,000 is what City Skylines 2 is actually peaked at. That is a pretty damn impressive number. Also remember, the game is available on Game Pass for PC, so for a lot of people who have that subscription, yes, they may prefer Steam, but it will cost them no extra money to get the game on, of course, on Game Pass, and I think that will actually be quite appealing to people, given all of the concerns about performance that I'd say would certainly make somebody think twice about purchasing the game on day one. The game was also able to stay on the top sellers for a decent amount of time. By Thursday afternoon, it was still third. It was taken over, of course, by Counter-Strike 2, and Ark Survival Ascended. Survival Ascended has itself been a bit of an interesting situation. That trend of something being on Unreal Engine 5 and having, some optimization issues, which obviously, if you're used to Ark, rocky optimization, lots of problems, it's kind of par for the course. Overall then, for performance, the team at Colossal Order basically, they put out a performance guide for their own game. They obviously knew that they really needed to do that, which is kind of unfortunate. They've also pushed their first patch now. That patch has actually helped a fair few people with performance for the game, so that certainly is a good thing. And as people have learned to disable some effects, like say the depth of field, it was a really big culprit. Yes, those Steam reviews have been going up. And also for some people, they've basically said there are problems right now, but overall, quite a few people are happy about the core changes to the simulation, which, are actually pushing this game in the direction that they want. Now, there is another interesting thing that's happened, though, because we've talked about a number of messy releases from Paradox. Now, these can be taken in the context of their new earnings report, which was actually released after the numbers were prepared for the profit and loss sheet, but before the report was published, and that does lead to some interesting numbers. So let's go through their numbers, maybe work out why some of this has happened. And basically what we see here is that over the 9 reported months, their revenues actually went up by 18%, which you might think is good, but revenue isn't everything. Their profits actually did decrease, their operating profit, by 17%, which of course they won't be best pleased about. Now, meanwhile, Meanwhile, Lamplighters League, it's basically being wrote down as a predicted loss of 248 million Swedish krona, which is quite a lot. As an example, their profit after financial items amounted to 556 million Swedish krona, right? So that is a fairly large write-off. But basically, right, their revenue's up, their profit's down. It's the kind of thing we're seeing across the game development industry right now, and of course, all going on in 2023, the year where we're seeing this happen everywhere. There's talk going around that, of course, my team is looking into of a very large layoff at Creative Assembly. We've seen layoffs absolutely everywhere, including the likes of Epic. So yes, this is absolutely stuff that we are seeing go on across the board. And I think a lot of this just comes down to, this very low interest rate environment that we had during, all the lockdowns and stuff. When those lockdowns were happening, the game industry disproportionately benefited. It maybe seems some companies overhired in that period of time, perhaps were a little bit too bullish on their growth projections, that kind of thing. I mean, look, when you see the revenue going up or the profits going down, I mean, it's should be fairly obvious what sorts of things are going on. Anyhow, with Paradox then, it seems they needed to just come out and start generating revenue rather than accruing these costs, and maybe that's why these things just had to happen. Because all their games are, into their big sort of DLC cycles right now. That means if you want a real massive, chunky, big surge of money, yeah, having a financial powerhouse like City Skylines 2 come in and pick up that slack is exactly what they'll want. There's probably a reason why this game came out right now. Like, look, if you're a programmer in this game and you are maybe looking at the performance, you're maybe not proud of that performance. You maybe think it could be better. Maybe you want time, as they've talked about, to implement like your DLSS or something like that, or DLSS 2.0, that is. You probably would have wanted more time, but ultimately, it's not the engineers working on the project that get to say when the game comes out, which is something that certainly as customers, we so very often do feel. That's ultimately what's going on now. Now, there is a bit of good news that has followed some bad news. Of course, Lamplighters League, as I've said, came out and really didn't set the world on fire in terms of sales. Everyone's been very negative about its financial performance. This was quite rough for Harebrained Schemes because they had fairly major job losses. I believe one person claiming to be at the company said it was 80%, but I think all that we've got confirmed right now is that there were job losses and they were kind of substantial. What's going to happen then is that Harebrained Schemes will continue to work on Lamplighters League until 2024 as a part of seeking new publishing and investment to maintain their remaining team. After that, they will be released by Paradox Interactive as a subsidiary. This is per Brian, the studio operations manager. Quote, "Our studio mission remains the same, to make games that challenge your mind and touch your heart." The big picture, right? Lamplighters League is a part of a direction that did not work out for Paradox Interactive. And the story of Paradox, if you've been following it, has been a kind of interesting one. They essentially branched out a bit, right? They branched out a bit, but there were kind of cracks forming. They had a rather controversial plan to essentially have a subscription that would allow people to just have all of their DLC. You've got games like, Imperator Rome that obviously did not have a good launch whatsoever. What happened is the CEO, I believe, then left, and I think was it the older CEO? Had came back, and basically what is said is this is from their COO. Paradox has refocused its strategy towards its core niches within strategy and management games with endless qualities. Again, endless qualities, that's just the idea that, hey, you can play Hearts of Iron 4 forever. I know a lot of things are possible in Hearts of Iron 4. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Ireland could somehow win the Second World War in that game. I'm not sure. Let me know. I probably do need to play that game, make my brain a little bit more wrinkly and big rather than, me being a smooth-brained MMO player. Sorry, I know. What can I say? We've all got our problems. Now, for this then, actually letting Harebrained Schemes leave is kind of the best path forward. Ultimately, it is sad that, those job losses happened, but at the end of the day, look, money's got to come from somewhere. It's got to make business sense. But if this can happen in a way where the studio actually gets to live, that is really good. This is better than we've seen from some other big corporate owners, as an example, say, with the Embracer Group, where it seems that they would rather just shut studios that they own down right? Rather than, what maybe Embracer would think of as sort of wasting the money and splitting them off as their own unit or just selling them. Of course, this doesn't mean there's going to be a happy ending. Paradox did seemingly cut them to the bone, but at least they do get to survive. The thing though is getting funding for games is fairly challenging in the current environment. So if they don't find that funding, things may fall over. That's just the harsh reality, especially when they cannot count on, Lamplighters League money actually making much of a dent. Now, to move to some better news, we've got Electronic Arts continuing some of their new and seemingly better development model, one that is itself seemingly modeled off the team at Respawn Entertainment, who, of course, were doing good things, while the rest of EA were not doing good things. What we've seen then is that EA Motive will be making Iron Man not on the Frostbite engine. Instead, they're going to be making that in Unreal Engine 5. Which does make a hell of a lot of sense. They've also put in place the Community Council model. This is basically a development model that's going to allow Iron Man and Marvel fans to give more direct feedback to the team during development. And this is something that happened with the Dead Space remake that actually did work really well. Now, this project is still in pre-production though, so it's probably going to be a few years away, but I think the point here that matters is they seem to be doing things right. It doesn't seem like it's being rushed. The whole Community Council thing is a good idea, and yes, doing this on, nice modern engine, that certainly makes sense versus Frostbite, where there'd be a whole bunch of technical debt. And as much as UE5 maybe hasn't got the best rap from gamers, lately, because we have had a few sort of ropier releases. Look, this will be coming out in years. This is being done by a pretty large AAA team, so those, a lot of those tools, a lot of those things, they will be more mature by the time this game actually comes out. And also, in terms of engaging with Iron Man, they have brought in one of the most beloved writers, Ryan North, which at least I'm told by the Marvel people on our team is a really good thing. So, actually, that all seems pretty damn good. So if this ends up being really good, we get, say, Wolverine game from Insomniac, we got Spider-Man from Insomniac, actually a kind of good little time for the superhero games. I mean, hell, even the Square Enix Guardians of the Galaxy game, by all accounts, was really damn good. I mean, certainly something that at the very least is worth giving a shot, on a sale, because the combat's apparently, actually fun. Okay, next, some less good news. Ubisoft are celebrating the 10-year anniversary of Rocksmith by announcing the delisting of the game. Nearly 10 years ago, we launched Rocksmith 2014 and set out on a journey of learning and playing guitar together, practicing old favorites, and yada, 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 yada. We thank you for all of this time. Now, as we approach the decade mark, we must remove Rocksmith 2014 for purchase on all storefronts as of October 23rd. DLC packs and singles will also be removed over time. Basically, here's what's happened. The licenses lasted 10 years. The licenses are expiring. That obviously means that any continuation of those licenses will involve the exchange of money. And as for Ubisoft, I think they would rather just kill this for Rocksmith 2014 and then push people towards Rocksmith Plus, which, is their current Rocksmith thing. And to be honest, Rocksmith Plus is pretty crazy, pretty weird. It's all about actually learning how to play instruments through, I suppose, the technology of video games, which honestly, is it going to make them the most money in the universe? No. Is it a really cool service? I think so. It certainly looks neat. And finally, for our last story of the day, a little bit of a fun one, because we are going to have some dog speed running of video games. Yes, you heard that right. For awesome games done quick in 2024, they're going to have a new novelty category, which, well, you know what? I'll just read the quote. This speedrun was directed by JSR, but all inputs were made by my Shiba Inu peanut butter. No assistance, autofire, macros, or save states were used. This took years of training. I wanted to train him to do something special when I realized as a puppy he was much smarter than the other dogs I've seen. Since I'm a speedrunner and PB was literally named after getting a PB, personal best, in a speedrun, it only made sense to me. There you go. I mean, hey, have you seen monkeys do little memorization games? They'll totally trounce humans. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe someone will make a scent controller, and the dogs will win the video games. Doubt that'll happen, but hey, it's a kind of cute story, isn't it? And that's it for today's video, man. The industry is moving so fast. October has been a crazy month for video games. There have been so many genuinely fantastic games that have came out this month. As for me and the team, well, I'm taking a bit of a look into Total War because I want to get you guys some of the best mods that you can play for the older games so you can still enjoy that hobby while, we're all seemingly just being a bit disappointed by Creative Assembly, and we're also working to verify some rumors, maybe reach out to and find some sources to learn what, more of what's going on, right? May as well try to contribute to, to the discourse, to the dialogue, because let's be real, as a lifetime, as a lifetime Total War player, pretty much, it's like, I mean, hey, I get to like moonlight as a Total War YouTuber for like a week, which is kind of cool, and one of the things I really wanted to do back in the day. Yeah, anyway, that's it for me. Have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you next time.